I was trying to beatbox that little intro there.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, welcome to the podcast once again. This is episode 4 of Include with Xclude. My guest today on my left is a producer, DJ, overall good friend, a yogi, strongman. He could be a doorman with his size. Overall, I feel a great dude, and he is producing some tracks that are in the mellow techno kind of genre. Melodic, that's the proper word for it. Sorry about that. Into the melodic, techno groove, and it definitely is a genre of genre of music that is definitely up and coming, but it's soon, if not already, gathering steam in the techno circles that from artists that you know and love. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Hesh Donnerstag for this episode. Hey, how you doing, y'all?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I'm honored, brother.
Thank you, man. I'm just hoping to get the ball rolling with this, and see what happens with this, and just have fun. I always wanted to do this. I'll recap it just because, I always had always felt inspiration for the RA Exchange podcast. And I was like, why not do that on the kind of local level?
Yeah.
And to see how that rolls, and kind of go through the circles, very basic questions, and then from there we kind of spitball, and then see how the talk gathers steam, and we can go in kind of any direction that you want. So even though I have questions for you, these could be questions for me just as well. Just consider this like an open conversation,
Of course.
Gotcha. So on Saturday night, we went to Westchester, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was the scene. Cozy was there. Hey, shout out to Cozy, by the way.
I see you, Cody.
Yeah, man. And for We Are Nuts, there was this kind of collective.
Hagen Prus.
Yes.
From Germany.
Gotcha. That's the name. And Paul was there just as well.
Good dude.
Yeah, overall good dude.
It's my first time meeting him.
Yeah.
He's an awesome dude.
Yeah. He was missing his phone yesterday, right? At the Rock Garden, where I was at Glendale Rock Garden, nearby the Art Museum here in Philadelphia. And he realized as we were setting up for the event that he lost his phone, and he was like, "Okay, call the hotel. Might be downstairs nearby the vending machines, or it might be in his room. So if you could, somebody just call ahead and just make sure that my phone is okay." And then somebody in our group called the hotel, and eventually we were able to get in contact with the room manager or the supervisor or whatever, and he or she eventually found the phone.
Wicked.
But we didn't tell Paul about that. We were just kind of keeping it a secret, like, yo, we can't fire your shit. Oh man, it's gonna be hectic. We're trying to set up now, so if you could just wait till later on. And Paul was getting all nervous. You could just see on his face. We kind of hit it from a bit. Then 10 minutes later, we spilled the beans on him.
Yeah,
and
he must have freaked out.
It was kind of like he kind of got punked. Yeah, it's good dude though. Good dude for sure.
Yeah.
But
I like meeting him the other night.
Yeah. Yeah, but I had a good night and seeing all of, like kind of the bass heads,
Yeah.
and um, drum and bass just as well as like kind of the whole
Like future bass.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what they call it. I think it's like a hybrid of like house music and an electro and like a wobbly bass kind of like had a baby.
Yeah, something like that. I would,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like Marble, Taylor Porcher.
Awesome. Shout out to him.
Yeah, I see you. And Emily, those guys are big drum and bass fans, and they're big advocates for drum and bass. They like everything, but their heart's really in alignment with like drum and bass, and sometimes some jungle stuff, and like that's all cool because I actually cut my teeth on that. And
Oh,
like
really?
those were some of the first shows I ever went into in New York City. So I thought every club was like every music was like DNB, because I'm like from the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
Even though you grew up 7 miles from New York City,
Mhm.
across the Manhattan Bay and Raritan Bay,
Right.
it doesn't mean that you know a thing about the music industry, especially when you're 18 trying to sneak into clubs in New York City.
Was freestyle kind of a thing back then, just as well? House was definitely
Jungle
big.
Brothers.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah. So
yep.
like the Jungle Brothers were mainstream, and that's the first time I ever heard a reference to what they call house music. And "Girl, I'll House You" and "You in My Hut Now." And
Yeah.
like to this day, I constantly like try to find remixes for some of the parties that I play that it's a little bit more. I don't want to say commercial, but maybe a little bit like earlier hours stuff.
Gotcha.
So yeah, like the Jungle Brothers, and that stuff was, I guess it was just like straight up house music and a little bit tribally at the time. So I guess that was the first stuff that I heard, and I heard it in like Long Branch on the Jersey Shore.
Is that where you grew up by chance?
I grew up in a town called Keensburg. Most people that are listening to this will know Keensburg because it's where they held Gratitude Migration for 3 years, the now defunct Gratitude Migration. So they held that. That was about a 3,000, 4,000 person festival on the Jersey Shore, right across, literally like the 7 miles
Okay.
that people take a ferry from like Atlantic Highlands to New York City, and they end up right down in like either downtown or like Pier 16 or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's where I grew up, Jersey Shore. I see you. Shout out, bros. Fist pumps.
Mhm. Who are you musical influences by chance? Well, I should start off by saying this question first.
Go ahead.
Why and or how did you become like a DJ and a producer?
Oh.
There could have been so many different career pathways that you could have taken, but
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like I was indirectly in music through somebody I dated about, now it's probably 20 years ago, and she was a pretty well-known singer on the scene. We did a lot of business with KTU, and that was my first exposure to behind the scenes. Like I was probably from about 24 or 25. I had like a regular visitation to the clubs in New York City. I was going to places like Float, and I was going to Sound Factory a lot, and some of the clubs on the Jersey Shore. And I was never really behind the scenes. In a few DJ booths, but not playing, just like
gotcha.
chilling out,
Yeah, yeah.
and like VIPs, like to the death of me all the time. Bought a lot of bottles, wasted a lot of money, partied a lot. But I wasn't behind the scenes until I dated this person.
Mhm.
So I started working with her on some of the Jersey Shore clubs. She had a few hits, and I ended up getting to know some people in the industry. Flash forward to probably about 8 years ago, I was managing a DJ who was on VH1's Masters of the Mix, and I gave him a mix of mine, and he gave me some really negative feedback.
Okay.
And it kind of inspired me through me wanting to sort of prove myself to that person, because they really they really ticked me off, and like I knew that I could do it. So I started DJing, and one of my first like gigs, of course it was unpaid, is that I worked for some former residents from the Ministry of Sound in London, and they have a channel on FM, and they asked me to do their Saturday night primetime mix after I got some skills. So that was relatively soon. But I was living in Atlantic City, and if you know anything about Atlantic City, there's not a big house music.
No, there is
There,
not.
like whether it's house music, techno. My favorite even back then was techno,
Yeah.
like after hour stuff. It just the whole scene was darkness and hard hitting and party and just like I loved it. And people just like let go a lot more in after hours than they did in like the stuffier clubs.
Okay.
So I was drawn to the underground, but you can't really make it in the Atlantic City area if you want to, be international or national. So I took a chance. The timing was right, and I moved to Philadelphia about 4.5 years ago, and I started playing with some of the PEX community. I played a lot of the PEX, the Philadelphia Experiment events, and got to know those guys, and got very, very close with a lot of those guys over the next coming like 2-3 years. And I have nothing but love and thanks for them for putting me on the scene. And that exposed me to a lot of people. Plus, I did my own work. I was a managed act, so it was always more than me working for me back then, anyway.
Gotcha. When
Go
when
ahead.
you were just starting to get up into kind of Atlantic City and or just moving to Philadelphia, even before then, when you were living in New York at the time, like who did you have an ear to as far as artists is
Like
concerned and or producers, whatever?
originally, it was people like Boris, and actually one of my good friends
Oh, Boris,
today, yeah, Boris,
yeah, yeah.
Boris from Russia, and the Transmit label,
Okay.
and to give you an idea, I became friends with him later in life. But Mario Caligari was on Nervous Records, and he was making a lot of house, making some techno, and he was actually opening for Boris on tour, whether it was like Sound Factory or like Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, and I fell in love with that. Originally, I guess like everybody else, it was a little bit more eclectic, So so like there was some like even like some EDM influences in
Right.
there, which was like a little bit more melodic and prettier stuff, like the Thomas Gold stuff and even Tiesto stuff back in the day, and and Armin van Buuren.
Okay.
So Armin van Buuren is pretty interesting because it's melodic and some of it can
Yes.
be hard and emotional. So I'm not a hater of any genre. Like I'm not like most techno DJs or, I'm not going to put down another genre. That we can learn something from every single genre, and there's masters at work in every single genre, whether it's house music.
Masters at work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah.
So
So-
that's as far as early influences, because I got an opportunity to go to quite a few ultras back in the
Okay.
day, because I owned into a bunch of investors that owned a music studio in Tampa Bay, right outside of Ybor City. So we would go to Ultra year after year. So I guess I was exposed to a lot of that kind of stuff. Oscar G was definitely on my radar. Shus and Ceballos.
I think they're in Atlantic City today. Houston
Are-
Bios. I think
yeah.
Roger Sanchez. Oh,
Awesome.
Vice is over there today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I saw them at that Revel place.
Yeah.
It was awesome. They were super nice. I actually caught a couple drinks with them. I think I posted the picture 4,000 times of me and Shus and Ceballos. I was like, look, I kind of know them. No, I don't. I really don't. I took a
Wait, it was
picture of
nice to
them.
know that, like you did for like a split second.
Yeah, we had a couple
You know?
drinks, and for superstars like or anybody, they were super nice. They were super loving and like very welcoming. We had a couple drinks, and then they went and played their show, and I went to the show.
Gotcha. That's how I kind of got involved into where I am now with DJing, and is
Cool.
I guess like
What
kind of
about you?
into producing. I
How did you
started.
start? Nobody asked you a question. Let's get into
Right.
it.
Let's get into that. Sure.
How'd you start DJing?
I started DJing because I was going out like along the neighborhood, like on 13th Street, like, Eye Candy, Voyeur, as well as Woody's at the time. I was kind of just finding myself in the process, and I would go out like even if I would go out like not every weekend, but almost every weekend, and even sometimes on Mondays just as well. Like I was like whenever the mood was right, whenever my friends were there, I was just like, okay, I'll be there too, just as well. And I started going out, and I began hearing a lot of the stuff that was on the radio being played at the clubs, because that kind of gets the most rotation to a degree. And don't get me wrong, I had some great nights there, but I felt like I was always kind of hearing the same thing, and I felt like as I was further and further going out, I was realizing that these tracks, like, that I've been hearing, whether through YouTube or through our radio. Like for example, All Gone Pete Tong, All Gone Pete Tong. That was a radio show I used to listen to on the
Tong.
daily. Yeah, and
Master.
yeah, for sure.
Rock star.
Yeah, and,
Interviewer.
yeah, and I began listening. I began listening to what the DJs were playing, and I was like, "Oh man, I feel they're doing a good job, but I feel like there's a lot more out there that I feel that should be played more often." And I kind of wanted to put my hat in the ring.
Do it.
So I was like, okay, let me do this. And then I hooked up with DJ Biz at the car show. And shout out DJ Biz, by the way. But I hooked up with him. And then he kind of showed me the way. And then from there, I kind of progressed to the international DJ cafes, which are still usually in the Mid-Atlantic area. There's some on Girard. Shout out to J-Rock. Shout out to Cutlass, by the way. And they're good dudes. They host it. You bring your setups. You know, you only play for 10 minutes, but you kind of get the kind of, even from just a small little 10-minute set, you kind of get the feeling of
playing out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. As opposed to just being in your bedroom, which, don't get me wrong, helps, but it's like you're playing out still to a degree. And then from there, I just kind of picked up the pace a little bit, start lending my ear to all these different sounds, and especially when I would travel. Like when I first traveled like to Amsterdam, I was like the Martin Solveig Intoxicated, that was playing everywhere.
All right.
And then from there, I went to, where did I go from there? Went to Germany.
Yeah.
And then gone to the more techno. You know, like going to Trésor, and like eventually my second time going to Germany, I attempted to go to Berghain, but I got into Watergate, and also as well Kit Kat Club, and of course Trésor again. And you know, just letting my ear like really be free.
Yeah.
I guess
learning, right?
Yeah.
Like learning.
Yeah, and hearing those different sounds. And I feel that with music, in a sense, it's not really as not as known as like architecture or food or like intriguing places to go when you travel. And like I feel like music is kind of like a underlying topic that I feel needs to get recognized. So I was like,
it's
okay.
growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. I mean, I've had an opportunity to play probably about 30 plus shows in Europe over the last 3 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and like you know, my first show overseas was with Anthony Murphy, Ireland's Anthony Murphy, Cork City, and his Playhouse group, which was at the Edison. And I cut my teeth on Europe on St. Patrick's Day in the biggest house venue in Southern Ireland. And we probably had about, they told me like 770 people through the door. I mean, St. Patrick's Day is exactly what you think it's like in Ireland. It's just utter mayhem, and my Irish family is just so ridiculous over there. And then I ended up going over in 2017 to play about 21, 22 shows in Ibiza. Some small, some like mid-size.
Okay.
No crazy big clubs like Eden. I think that like one of the highlights of that was doing after hours at a small place called Bar Amsterdam. Bar Amsterdam's like right in San Antonio. It's open till about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I had a bunch of fellow Philadelphia DJs and producers go over there. Everybody from like Khalil, Jay Hill, Paul Geddes from District. We had Brian the engineer came over. Juan Dingo came over there. So we really had like a nice amount, a nice array of different locals and different like national acts come over, and they got to see Ibiza. I think most of them had not played Ibiza, but I believe like Jay did. Jay was actually playing like Majorca at the time, and she eventually met us over there. I tried to hook up with a few other of my friends over there. Sorry if I left you out because my mind's racing right now, and I was just you know, it was a pleasure to do that, and just to kind of like wet my feet in that kind of like atmosphere and see what goes on. I think that the crowning achievement for me personally over there was to I played the Defected pre-party before Sonny Federa MK and Frankie Rizzardo played Eden, and they have their This Is Defected party on Sunday nights, and I got a chance to play Viva, which is the host of the pre-party now. Now it's closed, and Nathan's moved on and opened a few other clubs in Ibiza, San Antonio, and Ibiza town. So,
Okay.
but that was probably one of the best moments of the entire thing. That and like that wacky after hours was just awesome, and your ear definitely grows because every day, like when your hotel's next to Mambo, you know what I
Right.
mean, and you're literally in between like Ibiza Rocks and Cafe Mambo and the Blue Marlin and all of the Cafe Del Mar. It's like you can't help but to grow not only as a DJ but also as like I guess a human being, just like culturally, because everybody is not from Ibiza.
Right.
Everybody was totally from somewhere else in the world.
Mostly, primarily Brendan on this during like the summer, the vacation,
mostly
or
Brits.
holiday. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like we were some of the only Americans that
Mhm.
I ran into. We brought.
How was Eden? From your time that you experienced there. I mean, I've yet to go to Ibiza.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I ever will. But having you been there, was it kind of like the sound at the time? Was it kind of like a little bit more commercial? Was it still that kind of like distinctive, like I guess Carl Cox kind of like?
It was
Caribbean
actually
kinda
like
sound?
it was like house, tech, and techno had a baby, and like Frankie Rizzardo, MK, and they played back to back to back, and Sonny Federa.
Okay.
They played back to back to back, and it was almost like somebody tried to outdo somebody. So some of it would be housey, some of it would be a classic. Then somebody would drop a new tech track, and then somebody would drop a techno track, and they kind of like just took like a nice ride. I mean, Eden as a place is like super well run. We were there with some insiders and some club owners, so like we were kind of like in VIP and in the DJ booths and having fun like that. But I would say that my favorite moment, me being on stage, which there's quite a few of them, but I would say my favorite one was going to DC-10 and seeing Jamie Jones's Paradise show on Wednesday in Ibiza. DC-10 is in a old airplane hangar.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be, there had to be 4,000 or 5,000 people in the middle of the island. Like DC-10's not near anything. I guess it's near the airport because it's
I
a
wouldn't
hangar.
know.
Yeah, and when you go to someplace at 4 a.m., like the last thing you're like is, where is this exactly? So, and Richie Ahmed and Jamie Jones took me to outer space, and it's a good time when the club closes at 7 a.m. and you're like, where do we go now? Yeah, what are we doing now?
Right.
And that was kind of like the vibe, and you just didn't want it to end.
Right. For me, I experienced that when I was in London for a little bit.
Cool.
Like I think it was when Fabric was clearing out. Like I realized, wow, as I was on the dance floor, like I may never come here again. So I'm gonna like, it's like
do it to it.
And then before I knew it, it was like 6 a.m. and then. So I caught the train, or it was the bus, whatever. However, I got back there from that night, and went to my hotel room and had breakfast, and and then
I didn't eat breakfast,
and then proceeded whatever you ate. But I ate some pancakes, some toast, a glass of orange juice, and I was like, "What am I gonna do next?" And what I did next is I immediately sold the bed and then fell asleep, of course, and just kind of passed out for a little bit. Because when you're traveling, for long periods of time, whenever I travel, I usually travel for like a week, and it's like it's kind of tough to manage your time and to see everything, but for you not to get kind of like a little jet lag and or tired in the process. So it's like even though I have a week to kind of explore, I always find myself falling like trying to get some rest somehow during an appropriate time, however long that may be, even though I do want to still explore and everything else. But I had a good time. I had a good time when I was in London. Don't get me wrong. Hopefully I can go back there again.
Yeah, our case was a little different because we were actually there for the entire month of September in 2017, and
Was that just when Brexit came into play?
You're talking to the wrong guy about like
Okay.
political, economic stuff in anymore. I'm a yogi. I'm out in outer space.
Gotcha.
So I haven't watched TV since MASH was on. Hello. That's
MASH.
not entirely true. Seinfeld, does that count?
Oh, well, I understand MASH. Never really got into Seinfeld.
You're a little
but
young.
Yeah, I am, but I understand where you're coming from.
Cool.
But you are a yogi.
Yeah.
And so how did you get into that? And how, okay,
Sure.
go. And then I'll go into my next.
No.
Oh, I skipped another question, but
Go.
no, I didn't. Okay, so how did you become who you are as a yogi?
So it's I think it ends well. The story ends well, but like I had just started out in music and DJing, and formerly I was a personal trainer, and I still do some pretty high end personal training and movement stuff, and I was not a happy person, and I was hurting really, really, really bad. Like my drug use was completely out of control. I was doing coke and E a couple times a week in some cases. I was drinking probably 2-3 times a week, and I was doing really, really well business-wise, which normally that stuff doesn't go hand in hand. Maybe it does. I don't know. But
Keeps you awake, I guess.
yeah, well, it was just like, it was kind of like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself in like the fitness industry, and I had owned different like training studios, and I always did really, really well. I was the director of a 10,000 person gym in Atlantic County for a few years, so I was doing well. I lived in a country club, drove a Mercedes, super hot chick, like everything that you could imagine, but at the same time, I was not happy. And I think it was because of like just I was so ego-y and such a douche, and I just was super duper unhappy. Like the money didn't make me happy. My chick didn't make me happy. The Mercedes didn't make me happy. The drugs definitely weren't making me happy for a little while, but then that ends. So I was basically breaking down and crying every single day of my life, and I said, this has to stop because I'm going to end up killing myself. I was getting like crazy. I was getting paranoid. My drug use, like I said, was like out of control. So what I ended up doing is I bought Happiness for Dummies, the book Happiness for Dummies. And then that led me to Buddhism for Dummies. And it was the first time I got introduced to like proper Buddhism. And then I read and I listened to The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And that led me to wanting to know where like Buddhism came from, and that led me to yoga because Buddhism is 2,700 years old, and yoga and the Ayurvedic culture and the yogic culture is anywhere between 12,000 and 15,000 years old. So I always want to go to like the root of everything, and probably started meditating about 11 years ago, and automatically I realized the difference. Like my drug use got cut like by 1/10, and I wasn't coming home and I wasn't crying all the time. And I also had tons of immobility stuff from being an athlete and just from getting older. And yoga kind of like gave me peace of mind through meditation, and it like the breathing stuff was awesome because I had shitty breathing patterns from just being so stressed out for years.
That's so like influential, like, and that's so essential. Breathing, as dull as you might think that is, that plays a key.
Yeah, but
I found that out.
What we say is that the quality of your breathing directly affects the quality of your life. So I didn't know how down Schitt's Creek or up Schitt's Creek I was until I started feeling better, and then like the drug use like thinned out of my life, and a lot of the drinking thinned out of my life. Like I'm not going to say that I'm a saint, but like all kinds of like substances and usages have gone down to a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And especially being 46, you got to be a little bit more wise at 46 and pick your shots, I guess. And the reality is yeah, like my mobility got better, my stability got better,
Mhm.
my posture got better. And because I was a movement teacher and I was a personal trainer, the natural step for me was to become a yogi. And I studied under Shanti Desai from northern India.
Mhm.
And Shanti came to the United States from India, roughly 50 years ago. And he taught all over, and he had schools in everywhere from like Switzerland and Scandinavia.
Worldwide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and but he actually, what was funny is, I was in Atlantic City at the time
Mhm.
when I made all these big changes right outside. I lived in a place called Blue Heron Pines, like country club. It's owned by Ron Jaworski or whatever, and so like I hired Shanti to actually come and teach yoga because I heard it was cool and good for people. And in the first class, dude, I was up all night partying the night before,
Okay.
and I sat my first yoga class. Like, I was just going to sit on the sides and just let him do his thing. We probably had 50, 60 people at my training studio interested in doing yoga. We had pushed it for a few weeks. Shanti came in and taught me my first meditation, and I cried like a baby, and I felt like refreshed, and I was totally addicted to meditation from that point on because I hadn't felt good since I was a kid.
Mhm.
So that stuck with me, and I trained under Shanti. I trained under people like Sadhguru from the Isha Institute, and I've just picked up things from like different masters, Ram Dass, Krishna Das, those kind of people, the people that were on the forefront of like the acid movement in the 1960s, who ended up going just to yoga and getting off drugs.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I've had like a lot of interesting influences, and yoga, I say it literally saved my life. Like, I was suicidal, using drugs, losing my mind,
Mhm.
and yoga found me. I don't say that I found yoga. I say yoga found me, and I'm so happy to be a devoted yoga student and teacher today. And I've helped so many people. I'm so blessed to be in the position I am.
Was hot yoga on the rise when you were coming up
Yeah,
in?
yeah, but we don't do hot yoga. I
Okay.
mean, the whole thing behind hot yoga is that the muscle fiber, the tendons and the ligaments are more pliable at higher temperature.
Right.
So like what we say is like the muscles and the ligaments and like all the connective tissue is like taffy.
Yeah.
And if it's cold, taffy breaks.
Right.
And if it's warmed up, it
It's more
stretches out
relaxed.
better. You
Yeah,
know that.
okay,
You're a
yeah.
bike dude.
Mhm.
So you've done some stretching.
Yeah, I have,
Stretching.
and at this, to let you guys know, whoever's listening now, is I've been into cycling for at least 10 years, give or take,
Yeah.
and as much as I love the sport, and regardless of where it could be mountain, it could be road, I dabbled in BMX for a little bit. I feel that with the exception maybe BMX is that you're kind of fairly rigid because you're in one position for
Yeah.
long periods of
Locked
time.
in.
Yeah. And as fun and as beneficial as cycling was to me, I feel that it may be kind of rigid.
Yeah.
And then as I kind of fell into the music circles, like I was kind of very like focused on like trying to put myself out there. And cycling, as much as I like, they kind of lent itself to that in some kind of way. Like having that kind of discipline and having that mentality also kind of like drew me to a music or like kind of like techno as far as like that hard kind of like
Yeah, it's the
bass
pace.
line.
It's the
Yeah,
pace, right?
yeah, it's the bass and it's the pace of it, and
Yeah.
that kind of really resonates with me to this
Yeah.
day. And I still ride the bike from time to time, but I feel that I do need yoga and to kind of just loosen up and be more flexible.
Yeah.
But I definitely know I can do it. Considering yesterday again I was at a Glendale Rock Garden, and there's this aerialist there. Matt, who's the organizer for the event that went on yesterday on the 25th. We're in June, right? That's like I'm losing track of time.
No, we're still in May.
We're still in May. Gotcha. But June, it's right around the corner. But
I'm surprised I know.
yeah. But yesterday being May 24th, and they had this kind of like
Memorial Day
drum bass.
weekend, everybody.
Yeah, Memorial Day weekend, everybody, and we had there was this bass house kind of collected there. It was called was like See Restore, and we helped clean up the park at Glendale and everything else.
Dope. I
But
love
anyway,
that park's beautiful.
isn't it right?
Yeah.
It's I see people doing feng shui over there
Yeah.
every once in a while. It's kind of like relaxing, just being, very aware of what their body can do and everything
Yeah.
else. But anyway, Matt, who's the organizer for that event, his girlfriend named Luna had like a, for lack of a better phrase, like an aerialist kind of like hoop.
Yeah, I think they're called liras. I'm not
Liras.
quite sure.
Gotcha.
But I think they're called liras.
But it's like to put in it's like a pole attached to like a big metal like ring. I think it's
Yeah,
like
huge.
36 like inch wide or
Huge
something.
hoop,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I was messing around with that thing
Oh man,
and
no
trying to
joke, right?
yeah, no, I'm no joke. I'm trying to get photos from the event
Uh-huh.
of me on it, and at one point it was me and one girl, Rowan, who's absolutely gorgeous.
Shout out to Rowan.
Shout out to Rowan for sure. Hello. If you're
if
in
you're
the area,
if you're
hello.
listening, he's single.
Yes, I am. But anyway, at one point we were doing doubles. Like I was on the metal hoop and she was on bottom doing her thing. It was so majestic.
Oh yeah.
And I knew from there that as much strength as it is for you to pull yourself up onto that metal hoop, you have to have grace and style.
Oh yeah.
And I know I have that in me. It's just a matter of doing it more often.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to get kind of back into that. But long story short, I kind of feel that having yoga in your back pocket and knowing that
Exactly.
in those positions definitely can lend yourself towards um towards like a kind of like relaxation and peace and just being one with your body, being more fluid.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that sense.
It's all about fluidity and like the more mobile that you get from your yoga practice and the more stable that you get, mobility plus stability equals strength. And when you calm your mind, you can really, really start to focus on what's really going on in your body. And, it would definitely help you as an aerialist,
Gotcha.
as an interviewer.
Potential aerialist.
Right. Potential as a go-go dancer.
Yeah.
And it'll also help you as a human being. I mean, that's where I've seen some of the biggest leaps and gains until I started producing music, because I never, ever have writer's block.
Really?
Ever. And it's kind of ridiculous. And my workflow has gotten so fast that we can basically write tracks. I mean, tracks that you guys have heard like in 90 minutes. Like, and some of this stuff, and with one more like finishing session of an hour or two, like we can basically crank out a top 10 track or top 10 EP in the course of probably like 2 to 4 sessions.
Gotcha.
And the reason is because my mind is a lot more still, and it's not as cluttered with other stuff.
Gotcha.
So creativity
Gotcha.
creativity seems to flow. Like creativity always arises from silence. Don't get me wrong, I'm inspired by a lot of the other artists and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely in love
Understand.
with. Yeah, but the reality is because my mind is a little bit clearer, very, very clear at some points, like writer's block isn't a thing. And anybody who wants to know more about it, get at me, whether you're in the music business or not. It would be my pleasure to point you in the right direction.
Gotcha. It's just when you said stillness, I was like, wow, how does that work? Because like I'm so used to like having. Well, it kind of resonates with me. Like whenever I'm in a setting where there's a bunch of music being played for a long period of time, it could be, I don't know, me just chilling in my bedroom listening to some tracks on SoundCloud, or it could be going out that next day and hear something from somebody else, or it could be the next day where I'm just listening to the radio and like listening to tracks I have on my thumb drive, and like whenever I am consistently listening, I feel like ideas kind of come to me, and just like they come to me in like fragments.
Yeah.
But I always try to chase that, but then I'm aware that I don't have like a workflow set up where I can quickly somehow detail what I have in my head onto a keyboard.
Yeah.
And that's difficult for me. If I can like reimagine that somehow, that would be glorious. But it's very much in the moment. And I was listening to Nina Kravis.
Get it.
on RA, RA Exchange, just like 2 nights ago. It was like episode like 265, I think, whatever. But go find it; it's on there. And she was discussing that like having inspiration is a very fast thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's very volatile in a good way at that second, and you always try to chase it down wherever you can, trying to make that into a potential track. If you have, I'm guessing it's like if you have a certain set of sounds that resonate with you,
Mm-hmm.
go full force with that,
Mm-hmm.
and then see if you can build upon that. That's how I kind of interpret that conversation with
Yeah,
Benito.
like the way that I look at like writing music right now is, and the way that I approached it from the beginning, I thought that there was two really important things when it came to music production, and the first one was my concept. Like everything I write, I have a concept of a subject matter and like a mood,
Okay.
a style,
Yeah.
and even like what it's going. I mean, you wrote tracks with me, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically,
Good
and like
idea.
so, like we kind of, for the most part, picked a concept of what we were trying to like what was our idea.
Right.
And what was our subject matter? What was our pace? What was our overall sound? Is it dark? Is it light? Is it, is it fast? Is it hard? Is it melodic? Well, like what are we? Is it a combo? And then the other thing is the composition. So first is concept, and the rest is composition. Because you could have the best idea in the world, but if you can't present it in a logical, mathematical, musical way, it's not going to make sense to the listener.
Right.
Because everything that we're listening to, I don't care what genre it is normally some kind of progressive music. So it starts out so that DJs can mix it in.
Mm-hmm.
So it progresses as the other track goes out, your new track progresses in. So if you're not aware of some basic competent composition techniques or rules even, then or proper mixing,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not going to make sense to the listener. And the way that I write every track is I imagine that I'm on the dance floor. And whether it's a DJ student or a production student, I always tell them that it's all about being in that position of preeminence. And preeminence means that you imagine being on the other side of
Being the audience.
yeah. Like, dude, I started out on the dance floor, popping pills and like fucking dancing, and like the reality of it is that I don't do that stuff. But like I imagined my mindset when I was, and what did I want to hear? What was the dance floor maybe missing, or where could I have taken something, or like some of the, like, if you ever get a chance to see my DJ sets, I'm still playing those acapellas and samples from the 80s and the 90s in stuff that is like cutting edge, LFO, trippy
Right.
shit.
And it's funny because like it's like what's like it could be on either extreme. It could be very new
Yeah.
or very old, and it will seem like it would like nobody has ever heard that before.
Yeah, I mean that's how you know you're you're doing the right thing, is when it's new yet familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find, and that's like you when people are writing the right music, and this is what I hope people would think about the Donnerstag tracks, is like there's something so familiar about this, like you've been waiting to hear it. Back in the day in the 90s, the Wu-Tang, right? There's one section where I think it was Raekwon said, "I know you want to hear this because I've been waiting to hear it myself." So everything that he wrote, he was waiting to hear himself in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to adopt that mentality, that Wu-Tang, like Raekwon mentality, that if I didn't think it was interesting and I wasn't waiting to hear it and I didn't think it was cutting edge, then why the fuck am I making it? I'm not here to be like everybody else. I'm here to set the stage and establish my brand, not only for myself, but for the people that like look up to me, the people I take care of, including my kids and family. So that's why I do it. If you guys ever wonder why I'm so like fucking active and passionate. I'm not just doing it for myself, which is great, but I'm doing it for a lot of other people, a lot of family, and like I'm never gonna stop.
Now, do you meditate? I know you do,
Every day.
but how was did that go along with yoga just as well?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean it's a big part of it, and we call it Kriya Yoga. So the meditation, Kriya is Kriya, and every day I do probably a minimum of about a half hour to 40 minutes, and some days it's even a couple hours, and some days it's less. So like usually a minimum of about 22 minutes, but on average it's somewhere between probably a half hour and an hour a day to
gotcha?
be safe.
Do you consider yoga as much as a lifestyle as DJing and producing? And if so, has that lent itself to music in your sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we teach people is to take yoga and put it in your back pocket. So like we don't want it to be your lifestyle. We want it to help your lifestyle be better. So it doesn't matter if you're a mailman or an international DJ and producer or a mom.
Hmm.
What we want to do is we want to give you this skill set, put it in your back pocket so that you have a go-to reset and a technology that helps you become a better human being physically, mentally, emotionally, and also energetically. Holler. Shout out to yoga. Audio. Shout out to Shiva. I see you.
Now, did that kind of mentality lent itself to the genre of melodic techno in your sense?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like there's tons of tracks. Like one of the first yoga inspired tracks I ever wrote was Akasha, and Akasha means space in Hindu, and that appears on one of like my AI albums. But right now, like if you look at the top 100 in melodic, like there's tracks like Durga. Durga is an ancient story about the Devi Durga. She was a kind of like a goddess that was made up of 7 different gods. So Durga's a big hit right now by either like I think it's like Timeless Moment or like one of those bigger like Lost in You.
Okay.
Lost on
Yep.
You. So like, and you'll constantly see like Shiva and this. So like, yeah, it's definitely influential, and people are falling in love with the harder edge meets Middle Eastern, kind of like hypnotic mantras that are being like reproduced in music
Mhm.
today. So like mantras are from like everybody knows mantras. You've heard
Mhm.
them hundreds of times, and
Yeah.
like Om Shanti or Om. So like that's a mantra. So people are finding out that certain frequencies are lending people's ears to not only mind expansion but also more creativity and letting go and more peace.
Mhm.
So music is literally medicine.
In that sense, man, I kind of lost my flow there for a second.
That's all right. You're
Yeah,
killing it,
that's why.
son.
Thank
You're
you.
killing it.
Um,
You could do this for a living. Send your money.
well, we'll switch it up. We'll switch it up. I'm trying to.
Yeah, what you
get
got?
there. Did you ever go to this one place who I've always asked people about, and they always have like an opinion of, or like an experience
I
of,
can't wait to hear this.
shampoo.
No, I didn't make shampoo because I was in New York City back then, or like the Amboys or like Woodbridge in New Jersey. Like I was in
Mhm.
North Jersey,
Gotcha.
like North Jersey Shore. I didn't go to shampoo, comma. People still talk about it,
Yeah.
and they were like, "That shit was dope."
Yeah.
Like literally shampoo suds on the floor.
Yeah, I suppose I've never went to like one of those phone parties ever at shampoo, if they ever did one, but I did go to a phone party. It's like it's too wet. It's like I gotta bring a change of
Fuck your
clothes.
sneakers up.
Right.
Get the fuck
I
outta
don't
here.
like that. Oh, just well. Do you have a favorite spot that you traveled to thus far, and or kind of like a label who you kind of look upon to, like as far as like either how they promote themselves and or the artist, or how they are kind of influence you by chance with the music that they bring up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got to tell you that some of my favorite experiences were just recent in L.A. and San Francisco. I had a chance to play Avalon a few weeks ago with my buddy Joe Flo. We had opened for one of the bigger trance acts, but they still like they're so open
Still, yeah,
minded.
yeah.
You know, they're so open minded that we just banged techno for an hour and a half, and it was unbelievable. So like the open mindedness of the West Coast, I would say like the family sense
Mhm.
of when I play Ireland. I would say like the party atmosphere of Ibiza and the solemnity of Costa Rica, like all these places
Mhm.
that I've played. New York City always keeps you on your toes.
No doubt.
I have few things coming up in New York City, and I've always had a blast in New York City playing New York City. So as far as labels, it's an interesting conversation. You know, right now, Timeless Moment and Lost on You are the two of the bigger melodic labels that that I'm a party to, and they're very supportive of my works. You know, whether it's Nina and Kelvin at Lost on You, or it's Mortigoa at Timeless Moment. These guys are very supportive. Also, Aaron from Dynamic and Yoshitoshi is very supportive of me and my work. And I'm going to say what stands out most is about Lost on You is that they actually donate every single penny to charity that they take in.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, like, guys, support their label. Not only do they make the most cutting edge music in the world, they're very supportive to like nobodies like me, and they they're they're trying to raise awareness for like a lot of amazing
Mhm.
subjects that are like global
Yep.
problems, not just like wacky problems
Right.
overseas, like stuff.
Like clean water, let's say, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be anything.
Basics,
Yeah,
necessities.
yeah, like absolutely. They've been raising awareness for anything from like uh like like homelessness to to like like slavery that still goes
Yeah.
on, and they usually just like they usually pick a new one and to raise awareness of, and
Gotcha.
like all the way from like hunger in Africa. So they're beautiful people, man.
Now, out of all those labels, do they still produce vinyl in a way? And do you
Hmm.
yourself have a vinyl collection? Because I feel that
No.
kind of having a physical record being produced nowadays is kind of it's slowly like fading. It's still alive. It's still
Yeah.
around, but um, just labels pumping them out these days. It's kind of I don't want to say slow because the sales of records themselves are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
But I just don't really see as much as much output, I guess.
Yeah, when it comes to vinyl, it's an interesting subject that you brought that up. Like, of course, when like growing up in the '70s and '80s, I had a lot of vinyl, but I wasn't mixing it together. You know what I mean? So, as a professional DJ, no, I don't have a vinyl collection. Um, just recently, I had an opportunity when I played a show in Killington this winter
Hmm.
for some industry people. Was some of the first time that I actually tried to mix vinyl into vinyl,
Yeah.
and my jaw dropped at how difficult it was. And respect to all vinyl
Hmm.
DJs out there. Um, One of my closest buddies in Philadelphia, Bill E, has been spinning vinyl since for 30 years. And I know that there's people out there doing it on the Philly scene. I got nothing but respect for you
Hmm.
guys, whether you're in Philly or somewhere else. It is so frigging difficult. Colin Genshev,
Okay.
Colin Genshev,
Yep.
like, is one of the best dudes in Philly. I don't know if anybody knows how he does the vinyl thing, but he's an awesome DJ on CDJs, and he's awesome on vinyl. And I am definitely going to hit him up to learn, because I think that there's some kind of like history and culture to it that I'm missing by not being a vinyl dude. Uh, which is even funnier because they want to release a lot of my stuff on vinyl,
Huh.
and like I've literally played vinyl like twice,
Yeah.
and not even played it.
Yeah. I
You
don't
know?
have that much of a collection of vinyl just as well, just because most of my tracks are digital,
Yeah.
and I've always, every once in a while, I do stumble into a record shop
Mm.
looking for like the whatever kind of like whatever kind of genre. It could be techno, it could be drum bass, it could be freestyle, it could be house. It could be whatever genre. But granted, we live here in the U.S. and Philadelphia, and there's not. I don't know of a record store that carries those genres at all. However, when
Creep.
oh really?
Yeah, Creep has a lot of stuff. Check them out. I mean, I'm sure more of the guys that listen to your podcast, and even like Carlos and those guys,
Yeah.
can definitely point. Colin could definitely point.
Oh,
you
for
in the
sure. Yeah,
right
I
direction.
want to definitely interview
We're
him.
all friends and fans of each other, so like those guys can point you in the right direction. Like I know from shopping at Creep for tobacco pipes. that I've seen a ton of vinyl in there, and I've even seen some of the guys that play in like the local house scene.
Gotcha.
Shopping in there.
Okay, that's nice.
You know what I mean? So yeah, check it out. Check it out. It can't hurt.
But for the
I'll
majority,
go there with you.
gotcha. That's fine. Maybe
Well,
maybe after this, maybe after we grab a bite to eat or something like that.
I'd love to. I'm buying.
Gotcha. Thank you. But anyway, whenever I've stumbled into a record shop,
Right.
and I'm looking for whatever that kind of catches my ear.
Yeah.
If they happen to have some turntables so I can listen, and I always find myself like in the back of my head knowing that I can get this on my thumb drive. Why do I need to get a physical record of this thing?
Yeah, it's tough, right?
Right.
It's so
it's
tough as a DJ to be like, listen, I can do so much with my Nexuses. I can do so much with three CDJs. Not as much 4, but definitely 3.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, why would I ever subject myself to that kind of stuff? And then Colin will send me a video of Jeff Mills playing 8
right, or like he'll play
8
a
records.
cut. Yeah.
At one time. And I'm like, I must be the shittiest DJ in the world. Like, I can't even get 2 of them to play together.
Or like he'll play some like crazy cut of like some random electronic album or whatever kind of cool label that I had never heard of before, and it sounds
Shout
awesome.
out to Colin Genchev.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
You're a fucking modern day maestro, you Bulgarian son of a b. I love you.
But I always found myself in that kind of conundrum, even when I was at
right. I'm in the same place.
I was at Y-Wax in London, and when I went to Hardwax, I just realized that Hardwax and Hardwax is that kind of.
I've bought a lot of T-shirts at record stores, as most people do, versus buying wax. And I think I would love to get a set of 1,200. You know what I'd really love to do with wax? I fell in love with like Kruder and Dorfmeister stuff. I don't know if you know the German guys, kind of like
do they have
very
like
chill, like trip hop.
Do they have like another alias that they go by?
No, it's
okay.
It's Peter Kruder and Richard Dorfmeister, which was some of my first performance stuff that I ever got into. The K&D sessions, absolutely awesome. I recommend that album /CD/ download to everybody. K&D sessions by Kruder and Dorfmeister, and it was my first introduction to like ambient and like trip hop and that kind of stuff. And it's literally some of it's liquid D&B, and it was so meditative for me.
Was Apex Twin on the radar?
Apex Twin? No, but like I know, like I definitely have heard a bunch of stuff. And like that's the opposite side of the spectrum, I guess, because it's a lot harder and wackier.
Gotcha.
But like, what I'd love to do is learn how to mix like trip hop and more ambient stuff, and I would love to do a performance like that once I got good enough.
Gotcha.
So like, and just like Sunday vibes.
Yeah.
You know, like that's where it fits in for me. I can't imagine it on a Saturday night in 2019 or 2020.
I agree. I mean, for the person that you are now, Sunday I feel is the perfect day for you. Everybody's like relaxed. It's kind of like melodic techno in like a day. Like if melodic techno were
and slow it down.
Just
like slow the pace.
Yeah.
Like
just slow it down. And just like
you're hungover, still up, whatever your fucking deal is.
Right.
Like let's put some chill shit on and
just like float.
And order a pizza. It'll be great.
Sure. I'm going through my phone here.
You got anything else for me?
No, dude, I got more.
Oh, give it to me. I want to spill the beans.
Little Peep. Little Peep.
I'm
you
in
introduced
goth
me
boy clique
to that thing, and before I got into this whole like
goth boy
techno
clique.
House, whatever kind of thing. I was
phase.
very much into rap and kind of like new metal, kind of sort of like Limp Bizkit, but as well as like listening to like I don't know, like Dipset, Busta Rhymes,
Cameron,
like heavy like names in rap like Tony Touch, uh, uh,
Funk Fox,
Big Pun, uh, Nas especially, he's my favorite.
Biggie.
Yeah, well, not so much Biggie,
You
but
didn't do the
no, no.
everybody from
I
where I'm
wasn't
from is like a Biggie holic.
I wasn't in like I wasn't of the age to realize what
Yeah, you're younger.
and or who Tupac and Biggie were, but I
Yeah.
knew that kind of Nas was in kind of like that same kind of era, but didn't have that kind of like legacy as like
Yeah.
Tupac and um, Biggie did. But he was along that same kind of realm, and he saw everything in that kind of in that period of time in New York and I guess in Queens at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I always kind of relate with him because his lyrics are so deep. Like I feel like that's kind of lost in rap these days.
Mm.
But fast forwarding,
Yeah.
with Little Peep, and
I'm so glad we're talking about
yeah,
this.
we're talking about and fast forwarding to Little Peep, and it's like I'm not too much into like new school kind of rap,
Mm-hmm.
like, with the exception of like a
Rest in
ASAP,
peace, Little Peep.
rest in peace, with the exception of like maybe ASAP Mob,
Sure. ASAP Rocky.
ASAP Rocky, and
Really good, right?
yeah,
The work with Skrillex
fantastic.
is unbelievable.
Yeah, fantastic, and Yams, rest in peace.
Ugh. So many of these dudes.
Yeah.
Triple X, rest in peace.
Yeah, you always see these dudes kind of go
Man.
in and out, and it's like I feel as far as like new stuff is concerned, like you either know about it or you don't, kind of sort of almost with like these underground techno labels. But you brought me on to like Little Peep and like
Yeah.
listening to Beamer Boy and stuff
It's
like that. And that's like
unbelievable.
yeah, like
Yeah.
and
I'm-
you went
I'm
to
s-
one of his shows. Could you
Yeah.
maybe like describe kind of the
Sure.
vibe there?
Oh my God! Well, at the Fillmore, I've been listening to Goth Boy Click now for this is my like probably second year, and I got turned on to it oddly enough through like Lil Peep's death. Lil Peep, Gustav R. His real name was. He passed away a year, almost 2 years ago. This coming December, and he was 21 years old. And he was doing work with people like Marshmello, and those guys are actually backed and produced by everybody from like Trent Reznor all the way to Marilyn Manson. So they're kind of managed by the same people. So Goth Boy Click is people like Little Tracy, Wicca Face, Springs Eternal, Yawns, and Lil Peep. And Lil Peep passed away, but they never stopped. They never stopped touring. So I had an opportunity a few months ago to go with two of my good friends, Courtney and Emily, who you both know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Listen, this is totally nuts. I know that you guys go to my techno shows and stuff like that. I want to take you to something that's it means so much to me because it's such a deviation from the techno scene, sort of, because like it's basically like emo rap."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like also a lot of singing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it absolutely captivated me and captivated my dark side of like emotions and stuff. And they were talking and saying things like that I was definitely feeling and relating to, even as a dude in my 40s. So I was totally blown away. I invited them to the show in the Fillmore. They were floored. They couldn't believe how good it was. Shout out to Fantasy Camp. Shout out to Little Zubin, who's from Philly.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Goth Boy Click. And absolutely unbelievable show. If you ever have the opportunity to see them, they tour the world almost 12 months a year, guys. And if you ever have the opportunity to see Wicca Phase, Springs Eternal, he's from Scranton. And absolutely unbelievable. Hamburg Fantasy Camp. Lil Zubin's from Philly. Unbelievable, guys. You got to catch it. And it's such a nice break from the 4x4 beats, but it still like feeds the dark side of me. And to be in touch with your darkness is a big key to your happiness. Because once you can embrace your darkness and you can express your darkness, it leaves you. And you can kind of like face it. And especially when it came to like guilt about drug use, and it came to just like music or even like the little bit of touring that I've done, is like a lot of the stuff was relatable, relationship stuff, which probably touched me the most. You know, it's basically like The Cure times Morrissey times rap, if anybody can relate to that equation. Unbelievable stuff. Moody, ambient, experimental. It's fucking awesome. And if you have the chance to listen, and it's acquired taste, you got to stick with it. Play 3 or 4 Wicca Phase songs or Lil Peep songs, and you will be hooked.
Let's fly back to LA for a minute when you were with Joe Flo.
Joe Flo.
First class, baby.
Joe Flo, I see you, baby boy.
Um,
X-Files, Donnerstag, Joe Flo coming out.
did you have an opportunity to kind of like throw ideas around and maybe produce a track or two? And if so,
yes.
okay, gotcha.
Produced a track in L.A. called X-Files. We're gonna ask Fury to put it out on XDR Records in Madrid.
Gotcha. Now,
Yeah.
I would like to think they would have used Ableton as a
Yes, we
okay,
did.
gotcha. Were you an early adopter Ableton, and or how or did you kind of fall into that?
I'm so glad you're asking this question too. It took me 2 years of sitting with guys that really knew their stuff, like World Town's Ben Arsenal sat me down probably like 4 or 5 times, taught me a few of the basics. I actually hired somebody from Ableton to come over to the house. I do not recommend it. This dude sucked because he didn't make any kind of dance music. And it wasn't that he didn't know Ableton, but he was more of a band dude.
Gotcha.
So he wasn't into electronic music
Right.
production at all. So it took me 2 years. I sat around and learned from people. I made like maybe about 4 or 5 shitty tracks. And then I broke up with somebody who meant so much to me. And I went to a really, really dark place. So it was either smoke crack or be an awesome producer. And I cranked out 30 tracks in 30 days. And it like music literally again saved my life. And that was the beginning of like this whole Donnerstag stuff. And I've sold every one of the 30 tracks to a record label.
Congrats.
Thank you, brother. More to come.
And I know you have that now. I just briefly, I think I saw on
What?
one of your screenshots. I think it was on Facebook or Instagram. But like now you have a catalog.
Yeah.
Like you're slowly becoming that much more established.
Yeah, I've 38, I think 38 or 40 releases in the last 9 months between remixes, compilations, and original works. I probably have like 40 or 50 probably tracks out by now that are like individual tracks. But like I work with people and they constantly like they try to take advantage of the fact that I chart a lot and like my name's pretty recognized, I guess, and like the melodic scene. Like I've been at shows and dudes are like, I know, like the headliners are like, I love your music, and like I can't believe it. It's like so surreal. Like we were in for my birthday. I went with my boy Aries Lopez. I see you, Juan. I love you. And we went there, and it was me and Mosa, and we went to Brooklyn 101 to go see Mui from Berlin, and I said, hey, listen, I absolutely love your music, and I'm a big fan because I download some of his stuff and from Beatport, and I play some of his stuff in sets. And he said, what's your name? And I go, Hesh Donnerstag. He's like, you're Donnerstag? He's like, I love your stuff. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And I almost cried in front of Melissa.
Now,
I'm such a pussy.
now, do you have German roots or
Yeah.
or do you is it Irish or
Yeah,
okay.
Donnerstag's my last name.
Right.
So Donnerstag means Thursday in German. And my mother's family's from Italy. They're from Potenza, which is in southern Italy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm a Italio-German hybrid remix.
Did your parents, by chance, ever have kind of like a musical kind of background, or like how were they when they were?
My father actually owned and managed some places that had music, but he passed when I was a baby. So to give you an idea, my mom was a pianist, so she would play piano for family and friends in our living room. And I loved what it did. It like really brought everybody together, and it was like either the holidays or whatever. And you know, just seeing your mom do that from the time that you're like a baby
yeah.
is
Impactful.
so. I wanted to have that feeling of performing and bringing people together, and I fell in love with the music. And I've been pounding on the piano since I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I got my first professional keyboard at about 9 or 10 years old. I got a Kawai K3. Shout out to my sister Debbie, I see you. And I fell in love with it since. So thank God for a musical mom. Then I got involved in musicals and took guitar lessons, piano lessons, choir, you name it. And it's just all kind of like amalgamated. I didn't use a frigging thing in musical theory until 2 years ago when I started really producing at the professional level. And thank God I knew musical theory because it helped me progress through Ableton and the synth stuff that I do now.
Gotcha.
Holler.
Now, you must be a very busy man. I would imagine, like, how do you get a workout in? What's that regimen kind of like?
I wake up early.
Okay,
I wake
gotcha.
up super early. Like, I'm usually up between, like, 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. basically every day. If you ever check out my Instagram, donnerstag.music with a K, at donnerstag.music with a K on Instagram, you'll see a ton of sunrises. And I don't miss the sunrise almost every single day. And I wake up at 3 or 4, and I usually start teaching yoga at about 6 a.m. every day, and I have 2 or 3 students in the morning. Then I do the music thing the entire bulk of the day between promo, music design, whatever, and then production. And then I usually have a client or 2 in the afternoon. So it's kind of busy, but I do start super early. If you don't have enough time in your day, wake the fuck up earlier. 24 hours in a day, you could accomplish anything.
Like, do you, as far as the routine is concerned, like, do you
Yeah.
do, like, squats? Do you do free weights?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah.
I try to do weights now, which used to be like 5 to 7 days a week. I cut back on that to 3 days a week, where I do like kettlebells and weight stuff, like your traditional weight exercise.
Okay.
And then I have a yoga practice, a physical yoga practice every single day. Like, if I do not do my yoga practice, I feel like poop.
Gotcha. Like, for me, I did have a course, a gym membership at one point to Blink Fitness. They were located, I think they still are located, well, they have multiple locations, of course, but the closest one near me at the time when I was living in Philly was along Oregon Avenue. And they have a spot, and I was trying to get more fit. Like, I feel like my upper body could be a bit more broader. And I'm granted my size, 5'10", like 125. So at my height, my
You're
body
the
mass
perfect-
index,
You're the perfect supermodel.
yes. But I would like to change up the physique a little bit.
Right.
Just to be honest, just change it up a little bit. Maybe like maybe wear a size that's slightly bigger.
Right.
Despite me having that, I guess, European quote unquote kind of look.
Ho, ho, ho.
But I've always kind of wanted to change that.
Yeah.
And I worked that, but I realized that having a trainer is, I feel,
Highly
more
recommend it.
essential in learning how your own body mechanics are and what you need to
absolutely.
improve on. Like, for example, my hip flexors are
Crushed from biking.
crushed. I don't want to say crushed, but they could be more flexible.
You know what I mean.
And I know I can bring
And
it
you're
out.
bent over, right? You were in flexion all the time racing bikes.
Yeah.
So you're bent
Yeah.
over.
Correct. Except when you would except on hills, because most of your body weight's toward the rear of the bike, towards that back wheel.
Right.
And so you'd be more upright
You'd
to
probably
breathe.
come into extension, right?
Correct. But you coming into extension, you would still have to hold that cadence.
Yeah.
Because even though you are going
Pace,
uphill,
right? You mean pace, yeah.
correct. Even though you're in that extension, you need to hold pace, and you compensate for that pace by going into a lower gear and really just kind of really pushing.
Right.
Especially during those race days when everything counted, or you didn't get podium.
Yep.
And going back to like whole rigidity kind of spiel I was on.
Yeah. It's the repetition.
It's the repetition. As much
millions,
as
millions of rotations.
Yeah, and as much as I liked it, I'm kind of like feeling it. It's now granted cycling for me. It's a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
I think forever will
Yeah,
be.
you guys do it for your entire lives,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna need, because of so much conditioning, you need correction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're gonna just like, you would really, really appreciate some more range of motion, especially if you're trying to put on some size. Like the
Mhm.
more range of motion that you have, the more like you'll approach hypertrophy, and hypertrophy will help your muscle grow. So like full range of motion leads to more muscle fibers tearing. You eat more protein, they rebuild. So if you have more range of motion, you probably have access
Yeah.
to more muscle fiber.
And that was the key thing for me too, just that post workout.
Yeah.
Like gathering that protein in and
Yeah.
absorbing as much as you can within, like, let's say an hour
Yeah, it's
period.
a couple hour window.
Yeah,
Like
it's a
a
bit of
lot
a-
of it's systematic. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if
Right.
you were on, if you were one of my clients, I'd recommend like a lot of fats and a lot of proteins, but carbohydrates as well right after, because carbohydrates actually open the cell membranes.
Gotcha.
And they help inject the protein into the muscle fibers. So like carbohydrates, especially high sugar carbohydrates, open up the cells, make you feel better, right after it, and they inject that protein right into the muscle fiber.
Gotcha.
That's what we know. That's all we know.
Now, I'm not aiming to be like the cat one, like you're fast and you know it, almost like pro level. I don't aim to want to do that. I just want to do this for like for the betterment of myself and just everyday activity. I would imagine most of the clients that you come across just want to do that. It's like be more of who they are.
Yeah.
Through
Be the best
movement.
you.
Yeah, be the best you.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why I'm trying to kind of potentially aim for
Get it.
down the line.
Get it. Meat.
But I've always thought about let's say I get to that physique level.
Get it.
And everything else.
Sexy.
Like I'm there.
Meat.
And let's say I
Beef.
even become like a better cyclist. Let's say
Sure.
like I got a couple wins under my belt.
Hey.
I'm going strong. I decided to get back into racing. Like even if I'm going back into cycling before I get into this question, like with cycling you can always get back into it. Like I've met dudes who've like have had a kid or have had
Dads.
plentiful careers, or who are dads, and also
dads.
something has happened in their lives to where they had to put the weight to bike, but you can
Yeah.
always get back on the bike.
Right.
It's like riding a bike.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah. So they say. But let's say I get to that physique.
Yeah.
What I'm noticing here in Philadelphia, and I feel I should bring this up more on my podcast, is that more and more people have tattoos, and I don't have a tattoo. And it's like, yeah, it's right after the show. All your heart hash, whatever.
Right. Donnerstag.
Whatever. But like, I've always kind of like thought about it, but like, what do you have tattoos yourself? What do those kind of represent to you?
Oh man, like it definitely represented change in my life. So like, I think for basically the better part of the last 20 years, like I've been getting healthier and healthier and healthier over time, because I was absolutely batshit in my 20s. I was anywhere between like Sound Factory and Grateful Dead shows.
Gotcha.
So
man, that Grateful Dead, man, that was a scene of itself. It's
unbelievable,
still around.
but it helps me melodically, believe it or not. Like that kind of like jam stuff. So I got the Serenity Prayer on my left arm, just as a reminder that I had some control and no control. And I got on my right arm, I got God is within over a Celtic cross. No Irish in me whatsoever. So then I got my chest done, and my friend Sean Holmes from Indiana, shout out to Sean, did 15 hours on my chest. He made a fleur-de-lis and a crown. And like I think with every tattoo, like I was getting like a little bit more sober, and it was kind of like a pivot point over the last 10, 15 years. When I really started to become more devoted, I got my whole heart, my whole life written in French on my throat. And it's a reminder to listen with the ear of my heart and speak with my heart, and to love everybody unconditionally, even if you troll me and copy my bio and get 2,000 hate comments. I still love you. You know who you are.
Bro.
But
I was
Bros.
Before that, what was I? Before I came into trade school now,
Sure.
before that, I was trained to become an automotive technician to
Sure.
work on cars professionally. And that never really came awry because I didn't have that much experience of working on my own little projects.
Mhm.
And unlike cycling, where I was picking apart bikes left and right and make my own little creations and kind of just having fun with that like that, if I were to take apart my car, I couldn't go to work next day. Like
Mhm.
that was my only
Yeah.
car. Like I didn't have two cars and two insurance policies. And during that time, when I was learning how to try to become a technician, I was reading like car magazines, like at the time Importuner, Super Street magazine, and D Sport just as well. And also through those magazines, you saw these articles on like how to install a turbo or like how to install uh, dual flow fuel regulators, um, which ECU is best for your car or whatever. And along those same veins, like I was, going to Borders and the Barnes and Noble to find these magazines and read them. But in that same kind of aisle, I saw Lowrider magazine, and that kind of like a Latin kind of culture. And with most lowrider covers, with most lowrider magazine
Are
covers,
you Spanish?
yeah, I am.
I thought so.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't
That's what
want
I
to
never
guess
did. Yeah.
though. You never want to be like, "Hey, bro."
Right. Yeah, but I'm Puerto Rican. But I don't really
Wepa.
consider myself kind of to be Latin, but I am.
You are a Latin lover.
But I was like, I have like one issue of like Lowrider magazine. I've always noticed like the cover cars are always like have these elaborate murals, always
Sick,
airbrush.
right?
Like
Sick.
so much like
Shout out to
time,
graffiti.
so much time like spent on a paint job.
Yeah.
Like
Candy paint
multiple
bitches.
multiple layers of flake, multiple layers of
Make it
clear.
bounce.
So much time on
Drop it low.
murals and all this detail,
Mm.
and those artists have come and gone.
Mhm.
Like for example, Mr. Cartoon, famous LA tattoo artist, world renowned for his black and white portraits and as well as murals, I believe, just as well.
You're such an interesting dude.
And
You know a lot of things.
let's see, with along that same vein, Von Dutch, kind of like back then. That's more like hot rod kind of stuff. And did you ever have kind of like Von Dutch, kind of like
Clothes?
yeah, that was a thing back in the day.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
No, I was tempted.
Gotcha.
If you're from the Jersey Shore, you want to do everything from like Stussy
Yeah.
to like Von Dutch and stuff like that to like I remember the Philly Blunt shirts.
Yeah.
And like by me it was like Wu-Tang. And like I was one of the first people to start like wearing shirts that like had messages on them, like listen to more Bob Marley, like that kind of stuff. So I was always like I was always an outsider. I was always like a little bit more of a breakaway. I was always into emo. So like since like the 90s, I started like listening to Morrissey and the Smiths and like the very, very black on black culture, of like alternative. And I fell in love with Morrissey during the Kill Uncle tour, Sing Your Life and stuff like in 1991. And I never stopped listening to him or going to see him. So, like my fashion influences are, way way darker, super repetitive. Anybody who knows me knows I wear like the same kind of like cargo pants, like they're like tactical pants, like all the time because they're super comfortable. I can do yoga in them.
Gotcha.
And they have plenty of pockets.
Yes.
For
cargo.
For cargo per se. And like I love like t-shirts or like throwback t-shirts of like some like it could be like Zeppelin or whatever, like a Nirvana, like that kind of stuff. I love that, especially playing in those shows. Like I love playing shows in throwback tour tees. like Depeche Mode and like all that kind of cool shit.
Yeah, and like those images is always kind of resonate with me.
Yeah,
From the car culture and leading into kind of fashion.
so sick.
I've always wanted to like maybe dabble into like maybe getting one tattoo. Like
Von Dutch? Would you get Von Dutch?
well, I thought about getting like a pinstripe kind of like tattoo.
Sick.
Like that would be rad, like an homage kind of like that
Rad.
era of like hot rodding and Americana
Cool.
and creativity as well as artisanship, and maybe getting something like that down the line. But who knows where that might take me? But those images has always been like resonating with me. I've always wanted like kind of like put that on my body somehow, but that's yet to come. That's yet to really kind of be in fruition. Just because I feel like if you get that kind of tattoo, it's like, will it like kind of still resonate with you, or do you want like years later to be lasered off?
I thought about all my tattoos like seriously for a long time.
Right.
And I just, I wanted to make decent decisions after making so many shitty decisions. And I actually even have like 2 cover-ups. So I got my like fraternity letters in college in like Indian ink, where a dude like taps you with a checker like you're in prison. Horrible idea. Don't do it. And I had another shitty idea when I was 18. We all got tattoos, and me and all my boys, and I had to get them covered up eventually.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's my lane. Like, think it out, bro. Think it out, because it's got to be something that really is relatable and tangible to you, and it's got to mean a lot, and something that'll mean a lot in 10 years. Anything else for me, Big Daddy?
Were you a DJ producer first, or was that
DJ
like,
first?
Okay.
Yeah, DJ first, and like I wanted to grow. Like, I would have probably just like stayed in my lane if I didn't have any success or didn't like get a really, really good feedback from the DJ sets almost instantaneously. So the natural progression for a DJ who wants to make it, like I will, is production. So I went into production. Thank God I had music training when I was a kid, and boom, Donnerstag, get it.
Gotcha. And how? I know you dabbled on this
Sure.
already, but how do you kind of promote yourself? I know you do it through Instagram, and you work at 3 a.m. and you do this and that. But it's like, with social media these days, it's going like at like 200 miles per hour in like every direction you can imagine. It's hard to really compute.
You have to have
everything.
a big presence, and you have to put out really quality content that's interesting on basically all the channels. I'm also helped by certain people like Maury Katan from Curator, and I work pretty closely with Hype Edit, work pretty closely with Beatport. Instagram is really, really big. And also the relationships that I've built. I mean, say what you want. Think what you want about me as like a human being or a musician or even a producer. You're probably either going to love me or absolutely despise me. But the reality is that I've grown so many beautiful relationships in the last 7 years of really applying myself musically as a professional and trying to make it as a professional from a bedroom DJ, like literally playing live streams from my kitchen table, like with a couple beers, and like using the butt system, that broadcast utility, and and playing live streams, literally like 6 years ago. Now everybody and their mama's doing it, but like all the way to like today, you know what I mean, and being supported by some awesome names, in the business.
And like, just to dabble, I don't mean with this podcast to kind of spread any kind of hate or anything like that. I don't really want to do that. But like, how, at some points during your career and or life, did you kind of get despised as a DJ and or producer?
Yeah, it's like I guess like I'm glad to talk about this. This is actually the first time I'm ever talking about this like in public. It came to pass that like I come from a sales background, and whether you like it or not, the music industry is sales. And I was one of the like, for instance, when I moved to Philly, there wasn't a lot of the local guys that were gung ho about promotion, or they didn't know how to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, no offense to everyone in Philly, but it's just like everybody kind of like had their own niche. Nobody was really trying to make it like big, like nationally or internationally that I came across. And the national acts that I did know, like some of the Pex guys like Davidson Ospina and Everyday, like they were in their own lane. They have their other businesses. They're not solely in music anymore. Joe's got a sound company and, One Source, and Davidson is a web designer and does a lot of graphic design and stuff like that. So like I was one of the few people that was just trying to make it. So when you do a lot of promotion and other guys aren't doing a lot of promoting, you look like a dick. And I don't think a lot of people were used to somebody coming on so strong. And then I worked with one of the event producers from PEX, and she was my manager for a long time. And we had a pretty long-standing relationship. And she totally helped me a lot. But she was also on the forefront of pushing me and pushing my product, which I wanted because I wanted to make it. Fast forward to, I guess, me playing a lot more nationally. Somebody in the New York scene, in the Brooklyn scene, got a hold of one of my in-house bios that was used for sales. My buddy posted it. This other guy got wind of it because we were friends on Facebook. He obviously had some disdain for me. He didn't like it, or he's jealous or whatever. And he posted my bio, and I got over 2,000 hate comments on it, everywhere from people telling me that I was a fraud, or that I should go kill myself. And I've dealt with suicide stuff. So when somebody online is telling you to go kill yourself, it doesn't exactly feed the best, stuff. All the way to like some local stuff of just like some really envious people that have gone on to like even hurt like people like Fold Theory. Like some of my friends, like they've been attacked in certain chat rooms or on the internet and stuff like that. So I'm not alone in the trolling and the bullying, nor would I ever, ever, ever do it to another person or another artist. Hey, listen, if you don't like me, don't buy the tracks. If you don't like me, don't come see my sets. There's no reason for anyone to spread hate. It doesn't make sense. Music is medicine. If you don't like it, don't buy it, don't support it, but don't try to hurt somebody else through social media. It's a fucking disease, and you're a diseased person.
No, I'll tell you what. Brooklyn has changed so much.
Weird.
Wow, I know. It used to be
great.
this like
It's so great in so many ways.
Yeah, it used to be this island of a place where nothing existed.
Everything
and now
was in
everything,
the city, right?
Yeah, right. It was
Everything
like
was
in
in the city.
Manhattan, and I know
Lower East Side,
Thank
downtown.
you, because I don't know New York as much as I should. I know a little bit of Coney Island and like Manhattan, but it's like I still yet to explore like the five boroughs.
Midtown.
Yeah. And it's like it's night and day change in comparison. Like there's like good clubs, Output I know is gone, but now I think this new place called Basement is in its place now.
I don't know as much of that. Like you're gonna laugh at me. You would think I would know all of these places, but like Avant Gardner, the Mirage. Yeah, like these are the places. Like I have friends like Zach Triomphalo, who also was out for my birthday that night. Awesome producer. He works at Mirage, and he does sound in those places. I still have yet to be to one of these shows.
Same.
Yeah, and like we totally have to go. Let's find somebody that we both like. Like Rufus Del Sol is going to be there. I think there's some really, really interesting acts that are coming through during the summer of 2019. But yeah, like Brooklyn is completely the music capital of the world right now for the United States. And it's kind of bonkers because nobody went to Brooklyn.
Right. That wasn't the thing. Like if you
the
went
Brooklyn Bridge was a spot for raves. But
really?
Yeah. Halsey, yes, about 4 years ago. Are they coming for me?
No, they just let you the listeners know there's like sirens going
Yeah,
on.
I live on
Like,
Broad Street, and
yeah.
we're chilling right on Broad Street right now. So, like, to give you an idea, like, House of Yes 3-4 years ago, with people like Tucker and Nick Maddox and Pete Ostro. You know, I had the pleasure to be in there after like some of the boat parties with Devotion and Pex, and
This is
it was absolutely unbelievable. And that was my first time in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
And then Output.
Was it like underneath the bridge?
No, it's
Or is it
kind of
like
like
you're
I
on?
think it's Williamsburg.
Okay.
Don't
Okay.
Brooklyn people don't hate me if I don't know exactly where your jam is. I am I'm a humble yogi.
Because right when you said Brooklyn Bridge, I remember the
That's
Brooklyn.
where the raves were. A lot of the
Gotcha.
raves were literally
Like,
on the
was it like
Brooklyn side.
warehouse, kind of like district
No,
esque?
it was
Was
like
it? Or
literally
no?
under the bridge.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like a bunch of frigging
Okay.
tribal people.
Because when you mentioned that, I automatically thought of the Brooklyn Banks. And if you don't know about the Brooklyn Banks is like this, or and there was this legendary like skate spot, and the best skaters would have tried to do their best video parts at that spot. And I've only been there once, but immediately when I heard you say Brooklyn Bridge, I thought Brooklyn Banks. But I'm like wondering, was it in that same kind of spot? Like, does like having is there like correlation between like the skate scene and the rave scene?
Yeah,
Maybe.
they're actually it was very
I
very
don't. This is like just brand new shit. Go ahead.
in the early 90s it was almost connected at the hip. Like the skate scene
Really,
and the rave
I've
scene.
always thought it was like more hip hop.
So no, you're gonna laugh because back then it was. I'm sure those cats were listening to a lot of hip hop and stuff, but the reality is like the fashion was the same, like caffeine pants, loose T-shirts that had like
Man, that was
that
back in the day.
right
Yeah,
that
yeah.
had like logos on it. If it was like Life
Yeah.
cereal, like they would change it and like put an E pill as the eye,
Right.
or like some kind of like wacky shit. You cats remember? I don't know, but like it was closely related, like fashion wise, and that's the kind of way it was in Philly, even in the early '90s when I did visit out here. That a lot of the ravers who were my friends, and a lot of my friends that were DJs, were also very tightly knit to the skate scene.
Gotcha. I never was into skate scene. I was more into cycling, of course, and going back
Yeah.
to like BMX. That's
Right.
kind of like why, and also scooters. But I won't go into that. But regardless, like I was into that. I was in that scene. I do have a skate park nearby where I reside now in
Cool.
Newark, Delaware, and I don't frequent there as often just because like it's really easy to get yourself banged up just by doing the smallest little
You don't need
movement.
that. We're getting old.
Like, oh no, I'm going to try this 360, but you land always 180s and you can't fakie back. It sucks,
Yeah.
and it's like you fall on your ass just trying to do that 100 times. But I had fun with that. But speaking of fun, it's Memorial Day weekend
Yeah.
right now.
Let's get it.
Well, and everybody else is getting. Nobody who is in the city at the moment is in the city.
No.
Everybody's in Detroit
Movement.
moving.
Never been there.
Yep, I want to go, and I haven't been there either. And I know some people who are elsewhere.
Terrell.
Yep. And it's
Book
Memorial Day
me.
weekend. Maybe they'll be with family or with friends, but they're not. They're not around now. And I was feeling kind of down a little bit
Yeah.
initially
Aw.
on Friday night, but then I loosened up a little bit. And
It was the
Saturday,
slinky.
yesterday was good. It was a slinky. Yep, it was the slinky that got me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish to go to Detroit one day, but the thing is though, if I ever went anywhere else, like let's say I went to, well, I don't know, so let's say I went to Prague, or let's say I'll go to London, I guess next year, or whatever plans I may or may not have, hypothetically later on this year. It's like I'm not sure if like anybody else would care to join me in that. As much as like people want to go to like movement, just because it's this time of year, so it's like the perfect day to do it. But it's like I don't quite have the money, but
I'm not a
it's like,
crowd dude.
yeah, it's
I'm
like
not a crowd guy. Like I couldn't do it. Like as much amazing performers
Yeah.
and as amazing production. I mean, like if you know me personally in Philly, I go to nothing.
Good. Yeah.
Like I love everybody, like from over here though, and like all of you have my support when I can. But the reality is, I'm not going to your show
Mm-hmm.
because I have social anxiety, out the yin yang, and I'm trying to stay as sober as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I don't love all you cats, I try to go out when I can, but the reality is, I'm not a crowd dude anymore. And
Yeah.
like, if I'm not
I'm not
playing
a
and
festival kind of dude. I'm not that. I'm more
yeah,
club
I
kind of
can't
dude.
do
I
it.
can't do the
I can't
festivals,
do
the
it.
big festivals.
It's like I want if I
As
go
cool
to
as they
something,
are.
it's got to be there and out.
Yeah, maybe the after parties though, like at, for example, TV Lounge, like in Detroit, like stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. That would be more cool. Or just
yeah,
like even just networking, like
yeah,
through the maze of people that are
yeah.
there.
Shout out to Slur,
Yeah,
Detroit,
and like
Techno,
I always wanted to like do that, but it's like
Terrell.
like these experiences that we have and like are like indelible in our brains. And it's
Mhm.
like the passion that we have for those memories and
Mhm.
everything else that fell along with that. It doesn't really resonate. It doesn't really have impact without someone else being there.
Yeah, you
As
got to share it with friends. You're a little bit of a loner boner.
yeah, and you gotta express that passion in
Yeah,
some way or another.
you got to
I've
share
yet
it.
to find that. I've yet to find that kind of like happy medium.
Yeah,
Like I've never been in like a long term kind of relationship yet, but I want to definitely explore that and see where that takes me for better or worse.
and you could do some of that kind of stuff with it, like that special person.
Yeah,
You
well,
know
the
what I
thing is
mean?
though, I'm kind of doing that with DJing.
Yeah,
Like I'm like DJing is inherently social
right.
because you do have to network, you do have to connect.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
And you know
to
what?
a degree.
You know what? Like, I think that you could basically write your own ticket over the next few years, especially with some of the friends that you've accumulated in the music industry, even locally. Like, a lot of us have the opportunity to play, whether it's overseas, if you want to do like a Europe thing
Hmm.
or Eastern Europe thing or Ibiza or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're free to like
Hmm.
come with, and I can always get people opening gigs. I mean, I think I booked, 8 people in Ibiza the last time I was there. I even got Rukin booked his last trips to Ibiza, and I still have those relationships with people in Ibiza, even though I haven't been there in, this will be 2 years now.
Gotcha.
'Cause
What airline goes over there? Was it British Airways?
it's Iberia.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
And it's British Airways too. Continental.
Okay. You
Yeah.
mean United?
Is it?
They
Dude, I don't
merged.
even know, bro. But
I understand though.
yeah, Iberia was the big one that goes. So like we would fly into Paris, and then fly from Paris to Ibiza.
Okay.
Ibiza.
Well, I've never been to Paris, but that's a scene.
It was cool.
Just I mean, Daft Punk,
It was so cool.
for goodness sake, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some shows in places like Paris and Madrid and Berlin for Mr. Donnerstag over the next year or two. I'm signed to a label in Madrid. I'm signed to labels in Berlin. So I think that they're growing. They're putting on things. I'm also signed to a growing label called Tons of Mineshaft, where I'm also the A&R in Antwerp, Belgium. So we're going to be doing some shows. We're going to be handling bookings and stuff, as well as doing promotion. That's going to be coming out over the next few months.
Gotcha. Before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
before we get into pros, shout outs, and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
have you been to this record store here in Philadelphia that used to be here? It's I think more the hip hop guys know it. And when and if I do get in contact with the hip hop guys again to do this podcast,
I know them.
The same question.
Just say the word.
But the place, the word is used to be, I believe, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Armed's.
I don't know a thing about it.
If that is the correct pronunciation of it.
I don't know a thing
Armed's,
about it.
Armed's, but it was like the record store to go to.
I don't know a thing about it. Like I know Creep, and I know like that one on South Street. I can't even think of its name right now. But like I'm not a vinyl dude, and the only reasons I went in there was like to either buy like fucking bongs, bowls, or T-shirts.
That's a good way to support your record shop, even if you don't really
Yeah,
have a
I'm
collection
not a
of records.
vinyl
I don't.
dude.
I'm not either. I have like 3 records.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
it.
I have a Pink Floyd vinyl hanging on my wall right now with the original vinyl in it. What was that? Animals?
I
that
can't
album?
tell. There's like these
Yeah,
plants. It's very like earthy in this room.
yeah, bro. You know how we do yoga style, all nature every day, gurus. But I think it's the Animals album, and like that's the only wax I own,
Yeah.
and it's pinned to my wall next to my Pasha flag.
Mm-hmm. But
Shout out to Pasha.
like that's a good way of supporting your shop. Is like if your local
Yeah.
record shop happens to have a shirt,
And if you're
or
into like that kind of stuff or
Mhm.
whatever, like the closer we get to legalization in Philly and stuff like that, like these people are awesome people. Like shout out to Creep because they are always sweethearts and super affordable. Like even like the T-shirts, they're cutting edge, really dope shit.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
That's really about it. Unless you have any more
Yo,
questions for me.
thank you for today. No, thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. Who else? Who else are you gonna interview? Who else is on your radar?
Kalen,
Colin.
Colin,
Colin
Colin,
Genchev, everybody.
yeah, I want to get
Looks like Kalen, constantly called Kalen. Name is Colin. Kalin Genchev.
There you go.
Sofia, Bulgaria. Stands roughly 5'10".
I want to also interview some of the hip hop dudes that are right, like
Yeah.
J Rock.
Yeah, talk to me,
Yeah.
and I can introduce you to Expo. Expo did some of the mix down.
Oh, what, the DJ Expo in Lac City?
No, Expo, produced by Expo from Warehouse on Watts Studio. He's a producer, and he produces Sensi Star and Boogie Mandela and a lot of those more cutting edge Philadelphia,
Gotcha.
looking towards the big time guys. Let me know.
Gotcha.
And I'll make
Gotcha.
the introduction.
That's fine, but I need to get some more podcasts on them about for right now.
Yeah.
I'm just interviewing people that I know, just because I'm gonna get like a more warm result.
You
like,
know who'd be
you know?
great? You know who'd be a great interview for you?
Yeah.
Davidson Ospina.
Gotcha.
Ospina is a great speaker, and like he's totally into the industry.
Gotcha.
To give you an idea, he's been a panelist at everything from like West Coast Weekender. So yeah, awesome interview, awesome dude.
Gotcha.
Davidson Ospina.
Gotcha. And also
Ospina Digital in the house.
like some of the local club owners, like for example, like Rappy.
Oh, Ravi?
Yeah, Ravi,
Yeah,
man.
I'm
That'd be
sure
cool.
he'd be an amazing
Yeah,
interview.
yeah.
And I'm sure he'd say yes
Potentially.
right away.
Mhm.
I'm thinking like Rob Payne.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like Rob Payne would definitely
Yeah.
be a good one.
But this is all down the line anyway.
John,
I'm just like,
John Redding. Those guys actually have a podcast. The guys from Barbary
gotcha.
and Tommy.
What, like a podcast, kind of like we're doing right now? We're just kind of talking. Oh shit.
Yeah. They actually have one. I got a shout out in one of them for being jacked. So the Terrell sent me a clip.
Gotcha.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
man.
I guess we'll wrap things up.
Yeah.
Shout outs, promos,
Shout outs,
XCR
promos,
records, whatever.
Oh man, dude. So the end of the month, I mean, it's May right now. On the 29th, I have 2 releases coming out of Kit2 Records in Berlin, Germany. One is with one of my heroes, Adnan Djokovic. It's called Lysergic Acid. I did a remix for him. My EP is called Berlin. That comes out on the 29th as well from Kit2 Records. They wanted to do both of them on the same day. That includes Berlin, a techno remix of Berlin, and also a track by the name of Get Up. As far as shows and stuff like that, I've been chilling. I get a good opportunity. I'll be out to the West Coast again. I believe on Tuesday, June 11th, I'll be having a charity event on the deck of Warm Daddies on a Tuesday. I want you to come out and spin a little bit.
I'll check that out.
And some of my friends, I'm gonna have Mosin in to headline with me. He moved back to New York from Philly. Nothing set in stone as far as the rest of the summer. I have a lot of releases. I'm going to be playing for Think Tank Records out in Denver. I'll be back to San Francisco. I'll be back to L.A. for Techno Church. I'm sure I might be back at Avalon and Academy to play some some warm-up sets or direct support. As far as like me throwing my own events, it's too oversaturated, guys. Can't do it in Philly. I'll be invited out to New York probably. I work for Box for Joy label. We're going to be doing something at the end of summer in Brooklyn. So just keep your eyes peeled. I'm always blessed, and I get these phone calls constantly to come and play some pretty neat shows. And, until I'm a little bit bigger and I'm signed by bigger labels that have showcases, I'm going to be chilling. So don't expect a ton of shows out of me for the next year or so. But I think over the next 2 years, I'll be signed to some pretty heavy hitters that do their own thing, and be doing this full time.
And
From my lips to let's manifest it together.
And if you do get to that point, just always kind of be who
When?
you are now.
When I'm
It's,
gonna keep.
you know,
I'm always gonna be a sweetheart.
it was
I'm always
like,
gonna be like, dude. I
this-
hope you enjoyed today.
I did. I
Yeah.
do. And we still have time left in the day. It's 6:34 right now.
Yeah, let's go get some pizza. Or
Yeah,
some,
let's go get some.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, man.
Whatever you want, brother. Let's go get
Okay.
it. And I
Well-
appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no problem. No
Thank-
problem.
My bro. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, this was the
It
point
means-
of this
it means the
podcast
world, man.
entirely.
And anybody listening, I hope you got a little bit more insight into who I really am and kind of like what I've been through and how I got here. And sending everybody who's listening all my love. And thank you so much for your support, guys. And I hope I made some new fans and some new friends today.
Gotcha.
Which is even more important than fans.
I think that's a wrap on
Let's do it. Let's go
on
get something.
episode 4.
Woo!
Include with
Four.
Xclude.
Include with
4.
Xclude.
We'll have more to come as time passes. And right now I'm gonna enjoy my Memorial Day weekend with
Yeah, let's go
something
hang
to
out.
eat. I'm hungry. I got this water next to me, and this,
Fiji.
as much as I love water, as much as essential as water is, it's.
Do you want a
it's-
cold
it-
beverage?
Well, this was cold. Now it's a little bit warm, but this is still good. But water is nothing without like some kind of substance and some kind of carbohydrates and or some kind of protein
Let's do
right
it.
behind it and or in the mix of it. But I gotta get something to eat later. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.